It's now time for your favorite in-depth basketball show with the myths, the legends, Nard Dogg and Raindrops. Goulet!
2 years later, 29 episodes in, we've made it to episode 30. Welcome to Full Court Press. I'm Justin. Raindrops Goulet. This is a big one. I'm joined as always by the Nard Dogg, David Bernardi. How's it going, buddy?
As always, I'm doing wonderful. How are you, sir?
I'm fantastic. It's a pretty exciting time. We made it to 30 episodes. It's crazy, right? It's been over 2 years since the show was created. General thoughts about your experiences on Full Court Press so far?
A beautiful time just talking basketball.
Yeah, it's been wonderful, and it's been pretty cool. The people that we've been able to chat with, like episode 13, we talked to Andrew Nicholson of the Orlando Magic, Mississauga native. How awesome was that?
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
And that was an interview you set up, too. Don't ever forget that.
Oh, yeah. Nard Dogg in the clutch.
Oh, yes. Well, a lot of memories for sure, and a lot more to create going forward. And we've got tons to talk about on this episode of Full Court Press, the 30th episode of the show. Let's just get right into it, talk about what's happening in the NBA right now. First thing, Steph Curry just being inhuman, being some sort of superhero out on the court. I don't know how he does the things that he can do.
He's a weird person. He's strange.
You know what? He did grow up playing basketball in Toronto for a time, so I gotta say there's a little bit of that GTA influence on his game. I'm not just saying that because I'm from there, right?
Yep, they're 57-6 right now.
57-6, the Golden State Warriors.
They need 16 more wins to break that Chicago Bulls 95-96 record.
Yeah, 72-10. That'll be huge if they can pull that off. It's going to be something amazing, especially coming off winning the championship last year.
But they're going to have a huge test in their next game when they face off against Damian Lillard and the Trailblazers. Trailblazers won the last game.
That's true. And the Golden State Warriors did recently lose to the Lakers, of all teams. So that was a little bit of a shocker.
Yeah, that was surprising, but I don't know, the whole Kobe thing, final game against Curry, it was kind of sweet.
Kind of went out on an extra bang, extra sauce to that victory.
Yeah, we're going to miss Kobe.
Oh, that's for sure. The league's going to be a little different without Kobe, but you see these younger guys starting to rise. Someone like Steph Curry taking over the league and becoming one of the faces of the NBA, kind of taking over that role. But that is a good point to bring up because you're going to see a lot of these guys from days past, like Dirk Nowitzki, Vince Carter. I don't know how much longer he's going to play for. It's going to be an interesting landscape seeing guys like them and someone like Tim Duncan just departing the league and having the younger guys rise up and take over the league.
Yeah, even the supposed Kobe replacement, D'Angelo Russell, he went for 39 points the other night. You never know. And they got Jordan Clarkson and Julius Randle. That's a decent piece to build around. Now, let's switch topics to Oklahoma City Thunder. I was watching the game last night against the Clippers, and Russell Westbrook and Durant, they just went off. You saw Westbrook, he got 25 points, 20 assists, and 11 rebounds.
Wow. You talk about someone being inhuman and doing these unreal things on the court. Russell Westbrook certainly does not lack that.
He's only the third player in the past 30 years to pull that off. And speaking of the Clippers also, they're in trouble, in my opinion. Unless Paul Pierce has one of his magical playoff runs, I don't see them going out of the first round.
No?
They suck. They're just not good.
Flat out, they suck.
Right now, they're going to face Memphis. Honestly, they might actually win that matchup because Mario Chalmers he's out for the season now for the torn Achilles. But after that second round, they're getting swept most likely to Spurs, Warriors, OKC.
Yeah, I don't think they can contend against those teams. Do you think, just a question for you, do you think the Thunder will ever get a championship with Kevin Durant?
That's if Durant actually stays.
Exactly. That brings up another question. Will Kevin Durant stay with the Oklahoma City Thunder?
I'm glad you brought this up because I've been wanting to talk about this. I think Durant is, I don't know what he's thinking, not playing in the East, because he's got a better chance of making it to the finals. He can go to the Raptors, his favorite team when he was growing up. He can go there. He can join DeRozan, Lowry, and Valanciunas. A huge big four right there. And they go to the conference finals every year. He can join his hometown of Washington, and he can play with Beal and Wall, and they'd be a top team in the East. If he decides to leave OKC, I don't know why he would not pick to go to the East.
Personally, it would be amazing to see him as a Toronto Raptor playing for his favorite team in childhood. And that big four, that sounds pretty sweet. And definitely a team that would go to the conference finals for many, many years and possibly go all the way to the finals and a good shot at winning the championship with those four players.
But you know what the Raptors need to do? They need to make it to at least a second round or maybe the conference finals for Durant to even consider them.
Exactly. That's why the playoffs this year are huge for the Raptors, because the Raptors do have a chance. I want to bring this up. The Raptors do have the chance. It's possible that they could finish first place in the Eastern Conference. It's not totally out of the question.
Yeah, it's not out of the question. John Barry, he was saying, the Raptors can't catch the Cavs when they're 2 games back and they hold a tiebreaker against the Cavs, winning 2 out of 3 games this season. Will they do it? I think there's a huge shot they can. But the Raptors' final 20 games, they played 12 teams that are over 500. It's going to be tough, but the Raptors are 19-11 against teams over 500 this season.
Yep, so I think they could pull it off. The Raptors are either going to finish first or second in the Eastern Conference. That's what I'm putting down right now. I'm locking that down. They're going to finish either first or second. And
there's no chance the Celtics are catching them.
No. I don't think that's going to happen. And I think this year, I want to lock this down too. The Raptors, this will be the season that they get past the first round. This is the season that there's a lot on the line. You talk about Kevin Durant possibly joining the Raptors. They need to get past the first round to prove that they're a championship contender. They need to get past the first round to make up for whatever that was in the playoffs last year when they were swept by the Washington Wizards.
Well, right now they'd be facing Indiana. And the last time they played Indiana a couple months ago, the Raptors started the first quarter off with a 20-plus point lead, and they blew that game. So, I don't know. It's going to be tough. Whoever they play in the first round is going to be really tough this season.
It is, and the thing about the Raptors, you mentioned that they had a big lead like that. History has shown that the Raptors have a very difficult time at holding big leads. So they need to really work on that. And the thing is, they can't let up. You have an amazing first half. You can't have a bad third quarter or a bad fourth quarter. You got to just keep that speed, that consistency up, that strong play throughout all of the game.
It seems like every game recently, or the whole season to be exact, they build these 10, 15-point leads, and they'll let the team come back in the fourth quarter, and then the Raptors will play great defense, and luckily they'll get the win. But it's not going to work out in the playoffs. They get that 15-point lead. You just got to keep it up.
Exactly. You got to keep that lead, because the thing is, you can't let up at all, because all teams in the playoffs are going to push hard. So the Raptors can't just play what they were doing in the regular season. They need to step up and bring that extra power into the playoffs.
They need to avoid Chicago Bulls first round.
Oh, yeah, I don't want to see that.
It's going to be quite the tragedy. I don't see the Raptors beating the Bulls.
What is the ideal matchup for you?
Ideal. I don't know. Right now, it looks like they would most likely be facing Charlotte, Indiana, Chicago, or Detroit, and Washington if they make it. And I'd say Detroit is their most ideal matchup. They just seem to handle them all the time. And for some reason, they always lose to Charlotte, and I don't want any part of that.
Since the days of the Charlotte Bobcats, the Raptors were losing to Charlotte.
It's strange.
We don't want to see that. They're cursed against Charlotte.
Yeah.
Whether it be the Hornets or the Bobcats, if it's got Charlotte as its city, the Raptors have a very tough time facing them and a very tough time beating them.
Indeed.
Yep. All right, and now it's time to do something a little different. A new segment that we like to call In the Nest with the Nard Dogg, David Bernardi. Name pending. We don't know if it's going to stick, but it's a little something new that we're trying with the 30th episode of Full Court Press. It's where we combine the world of basketball, or I should say the Nard Dogg combines the world of basketball and the world of entertainment, see how they blend together and become one. Nard Dogg, take it away.
All right, so over the All-Star break, there was pictures of our very own Terrence Ross of the Raptors and Miss Amber Rose. She's that socialite, as they call them, and she looks really nice. And apparently, since they've been spotted together, everyone's saying they're dating, I guess. And recently, as in last week, we saw Amber Rose courtside at the Raptors game cheering on her boy Terrence Ross. And you got to wonder, since Ross is playing so well since after the All-Star break, is that the reason Amber Rose?
Quite possible. Some extra motivation.
The new love of life.
He's got a lovely lady by his side. Maybe he's playing a little bit better. I am quite happy to see Terrence Ross playing the way he's playing.
Think it's building his confidence?
Could be. Very well could be. It could be the opposite effect of what the Kardashians had on Lamar Odom. His career kind of went downhill. Big time. After he started seeing Khloe Kardashian. But now if Terrence Ross is seeing Amber Rose and he's playing better, you know what? Let's keep that relationship going because I like to see Terrence Ross play well.
At least keep the relationship going until the offseason, you'd say?
Yeah, until the offseason, then you could trade Terrence Ross away, right?
Because we don't want a sad and lonely Terrence Ross on hands.
No, we don't.
And I was listening to Jalen Rose the other day, and he heard about this, Terrence Ross and Amber Rose, and he's saying Terrence Ross should run for his life, just get away. So we'll see. It's pretty interesting. I don't know how Terrence Ross does it. First, he gets this big contract without proving himself, and then he gets Amber Rose? What's going on here? Does he have some magic potion on him? It's another strange thing. Everything's strange in this episode.
Yeah, it really is. Now, if Terrence Ross were to get traded, before we hopped in the booth to record this, you had mentioned DeMarcus Cousins. Now, DeMarcus Cousins was recently suspended one game by the Sacramento Kings, and you mentioned a potential off-season trade. Just in some hypothetical world, a draft pick, Jonas Valanciunas, and Terrence Ross for DeMarcus Cousins.
About DeMarcus Cousins, him and the Sacramento Kings, that's just a marriage that's gone on far too long. And I think this offseason, he needs to just ask for a trade, and the Kings will most likely trade him. And I think the Raptors would actually be a great trading partner because they'd be getting Jonas Valanciunas. He's a young, good point or center. He'd be replacing DeMarcus Cousins, and they get a nice sharpshooter in Terrence Ross, and then they get that lottery pick that the Raptors are getting from the Knicks in this draft. That would be an awesome trade for both sides.
Yeah, it would be a win-win at the end of the day. Personally, I wouldn't like to see Jonas Valanciunas go, but if we were to get DeMarcus Cousins, you kind of got to weigh the pros and cons. Getting DeMarcus Cousins, losing Valanciunas, it kind of all balances out. I don't mind getting rid of Terrence Ross, although I'm not totally against Terrence Ross. If he gets sent packing, I won't be crying myself to sleep that night.
And we know about DeMarcus Cousins' attitude problems, but I think coming into a winning situation in Toronto, and he's got his best friend Drake here, I think he'd just love it. And during the All-Star break, we saw DeMarcus Cousins wearing a Kadri Maple Leafs jersey.
So there you go. Match made in heaven? Quite possible. We'll have to see what happens during the offseason. It's going to be interesting.
It would just be beautiful if he just asked for a trade to Toronto. I'm saying no this season unless you trade me to Toronto.
Refuses to hit the court. Now, he mentioned sitting out a season and kind of sitting on the bench. Player that was kind of bashed for doing that, not giving his all in his later years with the Toronto Raptors is Mr. Vince Carter. Now, recently, you actually got the chance to watch this full interview and passed it along to me, and I got the chance to watch the full video. The Vince Carter interview that Stephen Smith conducted, I thought it was excellent. What did you think about that?
I don't know. I thought it was great. and it made me miss Vincent Lamar Carter more. He'll always have his haters in Toronto, but what can you do?
Well, what can you do? That's the thing.
But
I'm sure there's going to be people, that continue to boo him for the rest of his playing days and even into his retirement. But I don't think he deserves. I don't think he deserves the hate. He doesn't deserve to be booed anymore. That was years ago. That was over 10 years ago. You got to let it go.
and what I'm loving seeing is I went to the game last year against Memphis, and the Raptors they put on a tribute for him after the first quarter, and he was actually crying. Like you can see tears in his eyes.
No, I remember watching
And
that game broadcast and seeing Carter's reaction, and it was a real. There's some real emotion there.
I'm actually getting chills just talking about this right now.
Yeah, it's wonderful because Vince Carter, what he did for the Raptors organization, the city of Toronto, and Canadian basketball is
Yeah,
huge.
yeah. We saw snippets of Tristan Thompson, Kelly Olynyk, etc., all talking about how he was the reason they got into basketball.
Yeah, these are all guys in the NBA today. Andrew Wiggins, these are future stars in the league,
Yeah,
influenced
yeah.
by Vince
Wiggins,
Carter.
Corey Joseph. It goes on and on.
So Carter's impact on Toronto was huge,
Yeah,
and I don't boo Carter anymore. It would be great if, say, Carter were to play one more season in the NBA,
yeah,
if he signed a 1-year deal with the Raptors to
yeah. He
finish
can.
off his career.
I think he signed a 3-year contract with Memphis, but he can opt out after the season. And I would love it if, say, Vince Carter replaced James Johnson in that role. You know,
That would be
just for one
fine.
season.
Just for one season, just for nostalgia's sake, and have that
And
extra sense of
he's still good. He's played on 15 points in some games this season.
Oh, and he's still dunking the ball. Vince Carter can still get it done, hitting threes, hitting buzzer beaters,
Yeah, he's
hitting 60-footers. Vince Carter can still hit the long ball. It's crazy.
he's awesome. And in the interview, he's talking about. I love how he was critiquing all of his dunks, saying like what was on his mind and everything.
Yeah, because one of the blocks of the interview, one of the segments, was covering all his dunks during the dunk contest, which, in my opinion, is still the best dunk contest performance of all time.
Yeah. It's because everyone was expecting Vince Carter to go insane, and that's exactly what he did. He just brought the crowd to its feet every single dunk.
He got into that dunk mode. We talk about Steph Curry doing things that aren't human. Vince Carter did things that they did not look human. What he pulled
And
off in that dunk contest.
there's that one dunk where he puts his arm in the rim, and like the whole crowd is silent.
Yeah, if you can silence a crowd with a dunk,
Yeah,
that is pure skill. And Vince Carter, one of the best dunkers of all time, if not, I consider him the best dunk contest performer of all time. But I didn't see Michael Jordan's dunk contest back in the day, or Dominique Wilkins were the two names, because Vince did bring up a point. His fantasy dunk contest, it would be Vince Carter versus Dominique and MJ. I think Vince Carter would win that.
yeah, I think so too. It's just like those guys were great. It's just Vince Carter, like the power he put into his dunks were
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. And he also touched on there's a very interesting interview talking about his thoughts about the second round matchup versus the 76ers when the Raptors had a chance to go to the conference finals. And that morning,
Yeah.
Vince Carter attended his graduation ceremony at North Carolina, made it back in time for the game. And there's a lot of people that just. One interesting thing that he brought up is that he went up to all of his teammates at the time and asked them, "Is it okay if I go to my graduation ceremony?" And they all gave the okay. They all said, "Go do your thing. We respect that. That's awesome." But then he said about three of the Raptors at the time kind of gave him the cold shoulder after he missed
Now,
that winning shot.
now the three players, who would they be? I think 100% Charles Oakley, number 2 Antonio Davis, and number 3. This is a wild guess, but this guy was a veteran, and I'd say Chris Childs.
You think
Maybe.
Chris Childs?
Yeah,
Chris
because he
Childs.
was kind of a hothead too.
I could see that. Chris Childs. Do you think Keon Clark is a possibility?
I think Keon Clark was probably too busy drinking.
Oh, we know about.
That was in bad taste.
Ooh.
I think Keon Clark didn't know what was happening. Junkyard Dog.
No, I don't think the junkyard dog too much of a kind gentleman. I don't think he would do that. I don't want to believe the junkyard dog doing that. I still have a junkyard dog poster in the bedroom here. So
Yeah, you do.
I do. I got it when I went to a Raptors practice when I was about 11 or 12 years old. Still have it to this day. You'd hope that Carter would mention who those 3 players were, but he's too classy to do that.
Yeah.
He's not going to throw his teammates under the bus because it's water under the bridge. Nothing to really worry about. But it makes you think, who were those 3 players that gave Vince Carter flack for attending his graduation? What do you think, Nard Dogg? If you were a teammate of Vince Carter's during that year, would you have kind of shunned him for going to his high school graduation? Or would you have supported him? It's like
I think I would have been like, in my mind, I would be like, "What the hell, Vince? You can graduate any other time. You don't have to graduate now. You're playing the biggest game of your life." But like, in public, I'm a really nice guy. I don't think I would say that to him in person.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you can see Oakley most likely was thinking Antonio Davis.
And Chris Childs. Not Keon Clark.
Of course not.
Of course not.
Now, what else was talked about was his departure from Toronto.
Oh yeah, that was a messy situation because it was quite possibly the worst. Well, not quite possibly. It was the worst trade in Toronto Raptors history.
It may have been. No. It may have been the worst trade in NBA history. You're thinking, oh, Vince Carter was traded to New Jersey Nets. Oh, did they get at least Richard Jefferson back? Or maybe even Jason Kidd or Kenyon Martin at the time. He was good. Or like a first-round pick. No. They get freaking Aaron Williams. And what was it? Alonzo Mourning, who didn't report the team.
Yeah, Alonzo Mourning did not want to play for Toronto.
Oh, of course not. And
they
got 2 first-round picks. One turned out to be Joey Graham, and I think the other one was Villanueva.
Charlie Villanueva, so not too bad, but those draft picks, but nothing outstanding. Nothing to be like, oh, wow, great move. Horrendous trade.
And then you see how well he played after the trade.
Vince Carter had some fantastic years playing for the New Jersey Nets. He played really well.
And here's another thing that I just want to say. People are saying, oh, Vince dogged it, but I don't think people realize that Sam Mitchell was actually benching him. Vince Carter wasn't playing the minutes he was actually getting before. And that's why his numbers were down.
Exactly. There's a lot of people that just looked at things from the surface in the Vince Carter situation and judged Vince just for what they saw. And there's a lot of flawed reports about Vince Carter leaving. Sure, maybe he didn't play to the best of his ability, but I don't think it was as bad as people made it out to be.
And no way does Vince Carter get away with this. He's obviously part of the fault of the terrible departure, but the Raptors hired Rob freaking Babcock.
Ugh.
He was terrible.
He's a horrible general manager. Didn't know what he was doing.
The worst GM I've ever seen.
Yeah. And the crazy thing is, he considers that a smart trade. It was a terrible trade.
Yeah, Vince Carter, it was terrible, but you can't just blame him. The Raptors had atrocious management at the time. I wouldn't even want to stick with that team. They drafted Javier Araujo.
Yeah, one of the worst players in NBA history.
That was the last draft pick before Vince Carter left. I think Vince Carter just saw, Babcock he actually just drafted Araujo over, say, Iguodala.
Yeah, that was the year we could have had Andre frickin' Iguodala, last year's NBA Finals MVP.
It's just frustrating.
Very frustrating. But a lot of interesting things, a lot of cool stories brought up in the Vince Carter interview. Highly recommend it. If you're not, even if you're not a Vince Carter fan, watch it. Maybe it'll shine a different light on your, give you a different view of Vince Carter. And if you're just a basketball fan, watch the interview. It's super interesting, covers a lot. And one thing to wrap up the interview, he talks about his plans after basketball. He wants to get into broadcasting. Maybe we could have Vince Carter join us on the show, Nard Dogg.
Oh, that of course. But I was thinking when I heard that, I was like, hey, maybe if the Raptors actually sign him to a 1-year contract, he'll join the broadcast team after.
Could be. Do a team up with Mo Pete.
Oh yeah.
How sweet would that be?
And Alvin Williams, he does Sportsnet. Not that frequently, but he's there.
So just have the early 2000s Raptors join up, but in a broadcasting fashion. I'd watch that.
Yeah, I'd love to see that personally.
Be fantastic. A very good interview. Check it out. Highly recommend it. Now, Vince Carter, Nard Dogg, what do you think? Best Raptor of all time?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, I agree with you. 100% Vince Carter, the best Raptor of all time. Just as we were saying earlier, the impact he had on the city, the organization, and the country as a whole. What he did for basketball in Canada was huge, and he played so well with the Raptors. He put them on the map.
And I'm just going to say this right now. For number 2 of all time, I think if the Raptors make it to the second round, even conference finals this year, I think Lowry, he possibly passes Bosch as second best.
Let me ask you this, and we may be on similar views here. Top 4, top 5 Raptors of all time. You don't have to say give it up to a 5 because I've got 4 in mind that I'm thinking the best Raptors of all time.
VC, are we going in order or?
You can go in order if you'd like. If not, just throw out a list of names.
I'm just going to throw in a list of names. VC, Lowry, Bosch, DeRozan. Number 5, Mo Pete.
Mo Pete would be a good one. He was the NBA's Iron Man for a time, and you'd think maybe Tracy McGrady, but he wasn't with the Raptors long enough, because we're talking strictly their tenure with the Toronto Raptors.
And I'd say Amir Johnson, but he was great, but he wasn't,
I don't know if I'd put him in one of the best Raptors. I'd put Amir Johnson in the top 10.
Oh, for sure.
How about Antonio Davis?
Nah.
No?
What about Bargnani, our boy?
Oh boy. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy.
Il Mago.
Il Mago, the magician. Primo pasta and sauce. Maybe that's what I'll have for dinner tonight, some primo pasta and sauce.
Yeah, you will.
I've got the firm 4 best Raptors of all time: Vince Carter, Chris Bosh, DeMar DeRozan, Kyle Lowry. No question in my mind. That 5th one is tough to pick. Mo Pete is a really good option. I like Morris Peterson. He was a joy to watch, and just some of the trick shots he hit. And
so many.
He was a good player for the Raptors. He did a good job with the team.
Yeah, that buzzer beater against the Washington Wizards that'll be an all-time top 5 Raptors players of all time.
Still one of my favorite Raptors moments. It was crazy watching that and seeing that live. Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic.
And when you listen to the Washington Wizards commentator, he's just so rattled.
Oh, yeah. Of course, because Mark Ruffin tossed the ball up because he thought the game was over. What a fool. What a fool. You don't do that. You wait till you wait till the buzzer has gone off. On that note, that 5th Raptor up for debate, well, all of them up for debate, but I think a lot of people would agree with us that 4, the 4 horsemen of Raptors history, the best Raptors of all time: Vince Carter, DeMar DeRozan, Chris Bosh, and Kyle Lowry.
So what about retiring one of the numbers?
Retiring their numbers? I say you retire Vince Carter's 15, and I know that Amir Johnson wore number 15 for a good number of years with the Raptors, but I think you retire Carter's 15.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
There's no debate on that.
Retire Carter's 15. I would say retire DeMar DeRozan and Kyle Lowry's numbers, but I think we still got a few years left before you can say that for sure. What about Chris Bosh? Do you retire Chris Bosh's number 4?
Maybe in 10 years.
You give it some time.
Yeah, you give Vince Carter maybe 5 years retires and stuff like that. But yeah, I do think Vince Carter should just get his number retired because of what he did to Toronto and Canada basketball in general.
Just everything that he did for the game across the country and putting the Toronto Raptors on the map. I think Vince Carter was the first major step in bringing Canada basketball to what it is today.
Yeah, and of course, if Lowry and DeRozan, they stick around and win a couple playoff series or even championship, then yeah, you retire their number.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And I'd say retire DeMar DeRozan and Kyle Lowry's jerseys together, just for that symbolism. You can tell that they're clearly very good friends off the court, and they work well together on the court. So that would just be a wonderful moment.
They're such BFFs.
It's great. They're besties.
Such best friends right there.
Well, before we wrap episode 30 up of Full Court Press, just to have it locked and loaded, we mentioned those 4 names, Bosch, Lowry, DeRozan, Carter. Do we want to slot Morris Peterson into that 5th spot?
Yeah, I probably would.
Let's do it. Throw Mo Pete in there.
Do it. Do it. Just do it.
Well, Starsky and Hutch?
Ben Stiller right there.
Lovely. Well, it sounds good, Nard Dogg. If people want to discuss anything happening in Raptor land in the world of basketball with you on the social medias, where can they find you?
I think you get my expertise Raptors talk if you follow me on Twitter at David Bernardi 7.
Lovely. David Bernardi 7. And it's the same for Instagram, correct?
Yep, same username.
Right on. Keep it nice and simple. If you want to chat with me on the social medias, you can reach me on the Twitter at Justin Goulet 21 and on Instagram, Justin Goulet 21 as well. And remember to check out our Facebook page, Full Court Press. And you can also find past episodes of Full Court Press on the YouTube machine. So, as always, keep the basketball movement alive and strong. Thank you so much for joining us in this episode of Full Court Press, in episodes past and episodes of the future. I'm Justin Raindrops Goulet.
And I'm the Nard Dogg, David Bernardi. I bid you adieu. Cheers.
And we will catch you later.
You've just been hit with Full Court Press. Courtesy of the men, the myths, the legends, Nard Dogg and Raindrops.